G'day everyone, it's been a month since the WBC and I thought it'd be a good time to dive into the routine and share my thoughts and give you a bit more information of why I did what I did on stage. You only get 15 minutes on stage obviously, and there's so much more that I wanted to say, so I want to use that opportunity now and share my scores as well with you. So we'll break this down and we'll go part by part. So I'm going to watch it live here and then react, as we go. So let's watch the first part. Time. The 3rd of May, 2024, Busan, Korea. Today is the final of the World Barista Championship. I'm standing on stage amongst the best baristas in the world, waiting for announcements. I'm smiling, but void of emotion, feeling the weight of every word about to be spoken. Have I done enough to become the next World Barista Champion? The results are called, and I've just missed out. I'm instantly sad, disappointed, and confused. Were all those hours spent training worth it? But while standing there, consumed by emotions, I was abruptly lifted off the ground by a person I'd never met. This was Jonathan Gaskell, the person who produced one of the coffees that I served on stage. He hugged me tighter than I'd ever been hugged before, with tears streaming down his face. While I was feeling a wave of negative emotions, this man was overjoyed. He was the happiest person in the room. Not because his coffee almost won the WBC, but because his coffee deserved to be there. This represented his country, his family, years of hard work and sacrifice it took to get his coffee on stage. Now, Jonathan reminded me of something that I'd lost sight of. Coffee is about people, human connections, and not just results. Cool. So that's the first bit there, and obviously I speak about my reaction from the previous year in Busan. So for anyone that doesn't know, I came second by 1 point last year. And while I'm super grateful that I came second, it was still, like as I said there, I was sort of, I was feeling a bit empty at the time, and I didn't really know how to feel. And there was a bit of a contrast because Jonathan was over the moon, and he's a producer of Finca Zaza, and that's a coffee that I used last year and this year. And he ran up and gave me a massive hug after results, and it really was a bit of a turning point for me, thinking, I felt disappointed for coming second, which I shouldn't, right? Second in the world is an amazing achievement. So I'm, reflecting back on it now, I know how amazing it was. But at the time, I just felt so emotional, and as you can imagine, 1 point you sort of think, what could I have done different? So that moment when Jonathan hugged me was, it was a really turning point, and I really wanted to share that on stage this year. So he was the inspiration for my routine this year, and that moment is sort of what it summarized our relationship. So. And I guess just on a technical aspect of this one as well, you might have noticed that I took a while with the scales. So these tables weren't super solid. They were very solid, but for these high sensitive scales, when I was putting the handles on there, they were actually going up and down for about 0.5 gram. So I was sort of having to guess a little bit in between and try and get the average of what I was seeing go up and down. So it's one of those challenges you can't sort of prepare for back home in the training room. So yeah, if you notice that's what I was doing. So let's keep going. Now, barista competition has pushed me beyond what I thought coffee could ever be. But the more time I spent focused on the result, the more disconnected from my responsibility I became. Now, we all have these tools that make amazing coffee, but the most important is our voice. Now, whether it's on stage or in the cafe, it's our responsibility to represent everyone. Our responsibility to share the value in coffee, and our responsibility to the message that we send the industry. Judges, I'm going to be sharing entries out of my journals from the last 12 months. These entries have changed my perception on coffee and helped me understand my responsibilities as a barista competitor. And you'll be able to follow along with those diaries in front of you. So feel free to break eye contact at any stage to take a look. Just to quickly jump in here as well, so my routine was obviously about the responsibility of the barista, and as I just mentioned there, and I felt that was a super important thing to speak about this year. There's producers that are, from all around the world that coffees are represented on this stage, and sometimes I feel like, including myself, I haven't given them enough justice on stage. So it was really the time this year I wanted to be, use my voice, like I said, to represent these producers, because what they do is so integral to doing well in these competitions. So I really wanted to put that spotlight on. And the diary concept as well, which I'll touch on, was just a way that I thought I could convey these messages from lived experiences as well. So as I go through, they're all lived experiences and they're all 100% true. So we'll keep going.
Now today, I'm representing two coffee producers. Jonathan Gaskar of Finca Zaza and Jamison Savage of Finca Deborah. I was lucky enough to visit both coffee producers this year to see not just how amazing their farms are, but how amazing they are as people. I'll be starting with your espresso course, and I'm serving Jamison's phenomenal nitrogen macerated geisha, grown on his farm, Finca Deborah, from the Volcan region of Panama, 1,900 metres above sea level. Now Jamison fermented this coffee for 50 hours in a tank flush with nitrogen. This eliminated oxygen and provides a beautiful, juicy texture. He continues to flush the tank with nitrogen at specific intervals, contributing to those beautiful citrus qualities in the cup. And finally, finishing with 20 days on raised beds and dried to an 11% moisture content. So judges, when you're ready, you can please write these tasting notes down for the espresso course. Of navel orange, yellow peach, and Earl Grey tea. It's going to have a medium weight, a juicy texture, and a long lingering tea-like finish. I'm using a recipe of 20 in, 47 out, in 28 seconds. Now for my next diary entry.
So to touch on the coffee, I spoke about Jamison's coffee here, and this was a phenomenal coffee and probably one of the best espressos I've had in my whole entire life. So thank you, Jamison, for this amazing coffee. For my competitions, I always have a few options, and I'm very privileged to be able to have that. So we actually took 2 options over for my barista competition this year. So Jamison's coffee, he names them, and one of the coffees was Nirvana, and the other was Ether. So my speech here is speaking about Nirvana, and the only difference with Nirvana and Ether is the gas used. So they use argon for Ether and nitrogen for Nirvana. So having these 2 options, you don't really know how they're going to perform because the water's different, the machine's a little bit different over there as well. So they're variables that we're not 100% sure on. I was pretty confident that I was going to use Nirvana when I got over there. But as I had my tasting session, so we get an hour tasting session a few days prior to competition. In this session, I actually preferred Ether, and I did not expect that. So I decided to make the switch then and there. And so I had Ether on stage, but I was actually saying nitrogen rather than argon. I tried to change this. The day of the competition, I went out the back and I was practicing over and over again. But I say nitrogen so many times throughout my presentation that it was quite difficult to interchange. So that was one detail that I couldn't change in time, and I just wasn't preparing for that change as well. So, well, yes, I did say nitrogen. It was actually argon used as the gas. So we'll jump in.
The 5th of March, 2025. Today, I visited Jamison Savage. And after a long drive, I arrived at Finca Deborah, deep in the jungles of Panama. It was stunning. We started in the processing area, where Jamison poured some fresh cherries out to dry, and the aroma of jasmine filled the air. Could already tell these coffees were going to be unbelievable. After lunch, we went for a walk around the farm, but I couldn't help but notice some damaged trees. Jamison explained this is due to recent rains. Some cherries had split, and he dramatically lost harvest. These same rains caused landslides, where he lost trees and topsoil, meaning he can't plant on this land again and his farm has become smaller. Now, if this wasn't bad enough, Jamison explained he lost an entire farm years prior, with similar extreme rain events. Now, I knew coffee production was hard, but spending this time with Jamison made me realise how fragile coffee production can be. My appreciation for him grew, and I truly understood the value of his coffee. Now, judges, I'll be waving your espresso today.
So that diary entry with Jamison. So I think there might be some perceptions out there that, people from or producers from Panama might earn quite a lot of money from some of their coffees, which they do fetch some high prices, and I think rightfully so, because these are some of the best coffees in the world, and you can see them in the barista competition stage. So they're totally justified, but I think there might be that perception where we think these people are rich and they're overcharging for these coffees, which is just not the case. Spending the time with Jamison at his farm, he put the whole day aside to show me around Finca Deborah, and it was an absolutely beautiful farm in the remote areas of Panama, in Volcan. But I think, maybe I had some of these perceptions as well, where we think that everything's just perfect on these farms. But as we walked around, there was a lot of landslides, and Jamison didn't point these out either. So as we were walking around, I actually asked him, I said, what are these, what happened with all these landslides? And he had some big rains, and huge parts of his land were gone because it's so steep, and the soil just can't hold the water, and all these trees are gone. And I asked him, is he planning to replant in this area, and he just said it's not possible because that topsoil is what makes these coffees so good, and it's all gone. So that's part of his farm that he literally can't plant on again, and just because of the remote area and how steep it is, it's not possible to sort of prevent these happening. So this is the added value of these coffees that we don't really think about, right? Because these producers have to contend with these natural disasters and problems. So I think it's, it's a huge part of barista competition where, we want to use the best coffees, but they come at a cost, and I think it's worth explaining that and really sharing that with everyone as well. Another thing that I want to mention about this coffee was when I was there, Jamison asked me if there was anything that I wanted out of a coffee, which I am a little bit sort of hesitant to make any suggestions to producers, because I think what they do is amazing. It requires a lot of skill and effort. And as a barista coming onto their farm and telling them what to do, it doesn't make sense to me. They're not going to come on stage and tell me how to extract espresso. Of course, I would listen to their recommendations, but as a barista, I'm not going to go there and tell them how to produce coffee. I did use argon gas. Like we were saying before, I use it to seal my bags, and I told Jamison about this, and he thought it would be a great idea to put this in his fermentation tanks instead of nitrogen, to give that a go. So through that visit, that's sort of where that ether argon process was born. So I'm so thankful for Jamison to try that method, and obviously it produced an amazing coffee. So I'll continue.
So if you could please assess the crema just before I do. Thank you. Now, Jamison's coffee is valuable, but not for the price tag, but for the years of hard work, dedication, and many failures it took to get right. It's a culmination of years and years of dedication. Now, some of the value in our industry is tangible, like the coffee machine, the autocone, and this wave machine I'm using to bind molecules together to enhance the texture. But what we don't see is the producer's sacrifices, the late night processing, the weather events, and the impact a volatile C price has on producers. Now, we are responsible for sharing this value to the industry and our customers, because without value, we lose connection, and coffee simply becomes a transaction. So judges, I'll please ask you to stir your espresso 10 times. Please take 2 sips from the thin side of the cup, which should be facing you, and please enjoy the value of Jamison's hard work. Now, those pink cups are for your dirty spoons. Please enjoy.
All right, now for more of a technical aspect of this. So you can see that I use the wave machine. Now, last year, that was a huge part of my routine, and I made a big point of sort of pointing it out and what it actually did. But here, I barely spoke about it because I really wanted my message to be, talking about the value of Jamison's coffee. And like I said, not for the price tag, for all these other reasons we were mentioning before. But for anyone that doesn't know, this machine uses ultra-low frequency electromagnetic waves. So I use it for about 1 to 2 seconds. It changes depending on the extraction. For this instance, it was 1 second of waves. And I just found this sort of slightly increase the sweetness, texture, and reduce the bitterness. So that's the main things that I noticed this machine do. But yeah, like I was saying, I didn't want to make it a big focal point. And it's not like this machine takes a coffee that's going to score, 3 out of 6 to a 6 out of 6. It's not what it does. It's all these, small improvements that we make. So, every detail that I'm doing in this barista competition isn't about, trying to revolutionize the espresso. It's about improving it like in incremental steps. So every decision I made here on stage was about improving the espresso. So if I thought it made the coffee taste better, that's what I did. Cool.
Okay, judges.
Okay, so there was a big pause there, and that was intentional. So throughout the routine, I always leave breaks for the judges to assess and write scores down. So it's very intentional spacing. It might feel like a long time, but they've got a lot of notes to write down. So you need to give them the time to assess that. Now the fun part, releasing the scores. So for accuracy of taste and tactile descriptors, it was all full scores, and that was for every course as well. So I won't touch on those again, but it was all maximum scores. For the taste experience and the taste experience and the tactile experience, I'll go through each judge and what they scored me as well. So judge 1 was 5.5 and 5, 2, 5.5 and 5, and then the other judges were 5.5, 5.5, and 6 and 5.5. So very, very high scores, as you would assume, but yeah, it's scored out of 6 for anyone that doesn't know, and 5.5 is almost as good as you can get. If it's 6, it's basically saying that's the best sort of experience that you can have. So I got 1 6 in there, a few 5s and a lot of 5.5. So some crazy scores, and yeah, thank you to the judges for scoring it so highly as well. So for me, I experienced this coffee as it was super sweet, really floral, had really long length as well. And it was just so delicate, and it was just crystal clear, all the flavors that you could taste in there as well. So it was like something I've never had before, and I'm super thankful that I had that the opportunity to serve that on stage.
Milk course. And I'm serving Jonathan's beautiful natural papaya, grown on his farm, Finca Zaza, from Wheeler, Colombia, just outside the small town of Brussels, at 1,600 metres above sea level. Now, Jonathan chose to oxidise his coffee for 60 hours, right after picking, for complex acidity, followed by 160-hour anaerobic fermentation, contributing to those beautiful cherry notes you'll find in the cup. And finally, finishing with 16 days on raised beds, opposed to mechanical drying for increased flavour intensity. So judges, when you're ready, if you could please write these tasting notes down for the milk course. Of cherry, caramel, and malted chocolate. I'm using a recipe of 21 in, 35 out, in 24 seconds.
Again, I had a few different options for milk, all from Jonathan's farm, Zaza, and I actually chose papaya, I think the day before competition, and each round I assessed both lots, and I was deciding what to use. It was a much easier transition because I only speak about the varietal twice, so it was easy for me to interchange. So the other variety I was considering was a Pacamara, but obviously I went the papaya in the end.
Now let me take you back to the 8th of August 2024. I've just returned home from my first visit to Finca Zaza, and it was an amazing experience. Not just for the coffee, but my newfound admiration for Jonathan, his partner Alejandra, and their family. We spent a lot of time on the farm, where I saw their dedication to the coffee, trees, and land. It was obvious why the coffee was so good. Jonathan showed me a section of the farm where he chopped down some high-yielding catamount trees, the backbone of his family's harvest, to plant some geisha. Now this was a risk, removing reliable trees for a variety that potentially might not work. There was something else I noticed on the farm. There was brand new bioreactors in the processing area, where the old fermentation tubs were tucked around the corner. I asked Jonathan about this, and he told me that he was worried about what I might think. That his farm might not be as advanced as other producers in the area. He bought them just because I was coming. Now I was shook. Was this the message I was sending? Because Jonathan didn't have expensive equipment, did this make him think his farm wasn't good enough? Jonathan made me realise what we say and do as competitors is noticed. New varietals and crazy processing methods are always interesting to try. But are we going to buy these coffees year after year? We can change what we like with the seasons, but for the producer, it's a risk that not only affects them now, but years and generations into the future. So we need to make sure we're sending a clear and responsible message back to the producer. So today, I'm sending a message back to Jonathan that his coffee is amazing. Not for those new bioreactors, not because it's the next new thing, but because of his dedication, hard work that's transferred through to the cup. Now I'm pairing Jonathan's...
Now, obviously that was sort of some heavy emotions that I had through that course, and that was it was a true story. The first time that I visited Jonathan, I've been there a few times now, but the first time I went, he did have these new bioreactors, and when I went up to his farm, they were empty, brand new, clean, and I was wondering, I was like, why are they there? Why are they not used? And Jonathan doesn't speak a word of English. We can communicate, through WhatsApp, and we use Translator, so we have a lot of conversations that way. So I asked the exporter, I said, why does he have these new bioreactors? And he told me that he was actually worried about my visit, what my impression of his farm would be, and my expectations. And when I heard that, I was so upset that I could have this impact for a producer. Jonathan is one of the best producers in the world, and for me to think that he was worried about my visit or what I could say, it really upset me. And not that I was have any expectations, and I couldn't care less of what equipment he used, because the coffee that he produces is amazing. But I do hear a little bit about people going over to Origin and visiting producers, and I've heard secondhand that people are a little bit fussy, and they might not buy coffees if they see certain things as well. So look, I understand it's a business, but at the end of the day, I think we need to have this high level of respect for producers, and depending on where they are in the world, there's different circumstances. And for any producer to feel like they're not good enough or they should be ashamed of what they're doing is just, it's heart-wrenching for me. And this is why I tell that story on stage, because never do I want a producer to feel like that. So we're all community, we're all links in the chain. So and they're the most important link in that chain. So I think it's really important that we speak about that. Jonathan is an amazing human being. He's a good friend of mine as well. So for me to represent his coffee on stage again this year was literally the reason why I competed. And I was unsure if I wanted to compete this year, but he gave me the reason, because he's such an amazing human and I really wanted to represent him. So that's why I use his coffee.
Beautiful coffee with 90% full cream milk and 10% cryo-desiccated oat milk for increased texture and sweetness. Now we roasted this on a UG22 for extra strength to cut through this rich and creamy milk. So judges, hope you enjoy. I'll be back with you in just a moment. Thanks, Richard. Enjoy.
Okay, a few more technical details there. So I used a mixture of full cream milk milk and oat milk. The oat milk was cryodesiccated. So that's the powder. I made another video on that as well. So if you wanted to see how I make it, jump into that one. But this milk was super rich and creamy, and I felt like the oat milk really highlighted the fruit notes in Jonathan's coffee. So it really made it like a dessert, sort of like cheesecake. Lots of fruit, cherries, blackberries. It was just a phenomenal coffee. And yeah, I touched on the roasting as well. So we use a Probat 22 kilo roaster with low charges in that. So I love drum roasters for competition. Doesn't mean any other roaster is bad or anything, but for my preference, I love the drum roaster.
Okay, judges, when you're ready, if you could please follow me around to the signature course table.
Okay, obviously another intentional pause there for the judges to drink. I speak throughout each, as I'm pouring and serving to the judges, so I know that's a little bit conflicting where I'm saying I need to give the judges some space. But for the milk course, there's less notes you have to write, so I do give them some time to write some notes, but in terms of scoring, it's a little bit of an easier process, so there's only really one box that they need to focus on during that break. So I give them a bit of time, but these are some of the best judges in the world, so they are quite competent in scoring quite quickly with that one. For the scores, so for the milk course, I scored 5, which is the taste experience. So that's the only box that we're focusing on here. So 5, 5.5, 5, and 5.5. So almost maximum scores there. It's super high scores, and you might say, why wasn't there any 6s? But I think if you score a 6, judges are saying this is the best coffee they've ever had in their life. So 5.5 is just an extremely high score, and I'm super proud that coffee could score that high.
Right around to the end, thank you. All right. Now, voice and actions are more important than ever right now. With such volatility in the industry, it's important that we fulfill our role as coffee professionals. And that means representing everyone. No one more important than the producer. So today, for the signature course, I'm representing Jonathan by adding 2 espressos of his natural papaya, extracted to the same numbers as the milk course. But it's more than just that. This is the life work of a 4th generation farmer who has strived his whole life to elevate his family's coffee quality and is responsible for taking them from commercial blenders to some of the best specialty coffee in the world. This represents Jonathan. So to highlight Jonathan's traditional fermentation methods, not those new bioreactors, I'll be adding 5 ml.
I'll just pause it there. So those words that I said about Jonathan there and representing him, so true. Jonathan strived for a number of years to produce really high quality coffee. This wasn't an overnight thing for him. He's comes from generations of coffee producers. So to get to that level where he is now is just years of hard work and dedication. And this is a space that I really wanted to share that work that he did. And the signature drink this year for me was, we often speak a lot about the ingredients used, but I really wanted to put the focus back on the producer because, half of what's going into this drink is the coffees that I'm using. And I feel like that's the most important part. Obviously the ingredients are, they make the drink and it changes it, but at the end of the day, it's a coffee competition. And I really wanted to focus on the producers there.
This is the honey vinegar, using 2 of the oldest fermentation methods known to man, mead and vinegar. To create this, I've taken honey from Jonathan's farm and created a wild fermentation over 2 weeks. Then fermenting it for 5 parts honey to 1 part water, creating mead, eliminating alcohol. Now by adding this to the drink, it works with those cherry notes of Jonathan's coffee to give us new flavour notes of, and if you could please write these down, raspberry kombucha and guava.
Okay. So you can obviously tell that I stumbled my speech. And that was the moment that I realized that I made a mistake. With barista competitions, there's thousands and thousands of different decisions and actions and things you have to remember. And with this section, obviously there was something that I did make a mistake with and forgot. You could see that I poured in air, I guess, to the signature drink there. And that wasn't intentional. So I was meant to have it was a prop. So there's 2 ingredients here, which you'll see as we play the video along a little bit. But one part of it is a honey vinegar. And this is pre-batched in Melbourne. So I make this well before I leave. And it's, we use a lot of equipment to make this drink, and it's a very complicated process. But we only had 4 minutes to explain this. So I do try and not dumb down, but like just give information really short ways of delivering so I can get everything out I need to. In this process, rather than sort of have the actual honey vinegar on stage and create the drink, I use it as a demo. And so what I did, I had 200 mils of liquid, and backstage I'm meant to pour 5 mils of this 200 mils into that glass and have it as like a honey vinegar prop, basically. Backstage, I forgot to put that in. It was a combination of a few things. I spent a lot of time setting up and preparing, and I record everything, I write notes, and I've got times for everything I do backstage. So when I'm on stage, everything's prepared. But my trolleys were ready 2 to 3 hours before I needed to go on stage, except the cold things: milk, sig drink, ice balls. And as I needed to roll my trolleys on stage, I quickly put them in, but I didn't go through the checklist. So unfortunately, this is one thing that I missed. But I want to assure everyone that the beverage was served as intended. So the 200 mils is in the thermos, which I'll add in just in a second. But the 5 mils wasn't taken out of that and put into the honey vinegar as a demo. So one intentional thing I did there was I grabbed the glass and I put my 2 fingers over the bottom so the judges couldn't see anything was missing. And with competition, you have to sort of think on your feet sometimes when mistakes are made. And that was my solution at the time with a split second. Perhaps I should have just left it there and not used it as a demo and just put the tray behind me and continued. But I actually asked them to write their tasting notes down, and then I did a quick action of pouring like this. So the judges didn't really notice that's what I did. And everything went on. So yeah, as much as that still, grinds me to this day that I forgot that ingredient, it didn't really impact the scores. The drink was as intended, and I was thankful that I trained for accidents like this to happen and to think on my feet and do the best I can in those situations. So while yes, it's frustrating that it wasn't perfect, nothing changed, the scores didn't change, and I'm super thankful that I could think fast enough to find a solution for that.
Now I'm also representing Jamison today by adding 2 espressos of his washed geisha, extracted to the same numbers as the espresso course. This represents 2 decades of determination to produce the best coffee you can, by not only continuing to learn and grow, but by pushing through diversity and challenges, where many would have found it easy to give up. This represents Jamison. So to highlight the value of Jamison's coffee, I'll be adding 200 mils of a Cascara and passion fruit distillate. I've taken Cascara, a byproduct of production, and passion fruit husks, normally a waste product, and created value. To create this, I placed equal parts into the rotary evaporator, applied a 50-degree heat under vacuum pressure, and then collected the distillate. Then, I carbonate that liquid to 60 psi to achieve an effervescent texture. Now, by adding this to the drink, it works with the citrus qualities of Jamison's coffee to give us new flavours of, and if you could please write these down, pink grapefruit and mango.
So yeah, you can see the entirety of the drink being used there. So that pink liquid would have made up 5% of that honey vinegar. That's enough about that. I'll move on. Again, showcasing Jamison and, the dedication that he's had. And, Jamison has been producing coffee for a couple of decades now and has become one of the best producers in the world and is world renowned. And that comes from so much hard work. And I've seen that firsthand He puts extraordinarily high levels of detail into every single processing method he does, and he's got a keen eye for detail, and he uses a lot of innovation. So it was a pleasure to be able to use Jamison's coffee this year.
Judges, I'll be serving us at 4 degrees today for flavour clarity. Now please ask that you wait until I call time to assess this drink. And when I do, feel free to take as many sips as you like. Now, it's been a difficult time for the coffee industry over the last 12 months, with volatility in the seed price and difficult conditions for producers. But we as baristas not only have the ability to affect positive change, but the responsibility. We need to make sure we share the value of these amazing coffees to our customers. Be conscious of the message that we're sending back to the producer, and represent these amazing farmers who are putting their blood, sweat and tears into every single harvest. Because if we don't, who will?
I took a long time to write that little outro there because it meant so much to me. Because it's a difficult time at the moment, and seed prices are going through the roof, and it's challenging. I think there's a lot of people are just trying to buy cheaper coffee and keep costs down, but these coffees are demanding a higher price, and so they should, right? I think coffee is too cheap in general. When we buy it day to day in a cafe, it's way too cheap. This product is way too valuable to be as cheap as it is now. So I think this is part of the value that we have that we need to share for these coffees. That it's our job as baristas to tell people that aren't as educated as us that we can pay more for this coffee because it's worth it. That's sort of where that outro came from.
Judges, I have one last diary entry before I call time today I would love to share with you. The 20th of October 2025, Milan, Italy. Today is the final of the WBC. I'm nervous, but more than anything, excited, because this time feels different. I can't wait to get on stage and share this message. Thank you to Jamison for this amazing coffee and all his hard work. Thank you to Jonathan and Alejandra, who have given me the inspiration to compete this year and change my perception of what it means to be a barista competitor, and that made me a better person. They taught me that it's not just about winning a trophy, but being an ambassador for this amazing industry we all love. They've come all the way from Colombia to watch me. I hope I made it proud. Time.
That's what our finalists. Please give them a round.
That's that last diary entry was really tough to write, and that's it. I meant every word of it. Jonathan and Alejandro were the inspiration this year, and I wouldn't have competed without them. And to share that message on stage sort of made me quite emotional. And through the previous rounds, it was a little harder to get through emotionally. But as I sort of warmed up and I got those words out, the final was a little bit easier to get out, and as tough as it was. But just to give you a little insight, Jonathan and Alejandro, their whole family came to watch me. So Jonathan's parents, their son, their brother, their whole extended family came all the way from Colombia to watch me on stage. So even my family came as well. My brother and sister, my parents, had friends. So I had so many people in the audience that were so connected to me and this story, and it just made me so emotional. And I was so proud that I could serve his coffee on stage. I guess the signature drink and the scores as well. So this drink I was in love with. It was sort of like a passion fruit soda almost with coffee. Super complex, and it was carbonated, obviously. So it quite lifted the flavors off the palate and made them quite complex. So to share the scores, I got 5.5 from each judge in the signature course. So super stoked about that. Total impression from each judge, I got a 6. So obviously they enjoyed my performance, which I'm very thankful for. So they're the scores that I got for my routine, and I was super excited to share this information with everyone. For me, this routine meant so much to me, compared to the previous years and routines that I did, and The difference this year, I thought, was because I found my why and why I wanted to compete, and that was to represent two amazing producers, Jonathan and Alejandra, and Jamison as well. So having that connection and that personal lived experience of visiting them and having connection over a number of years, and that was why this routine meant so much to me. And hopefully you felt it when you watched it as well, that I was so connected to it. And I'm so glad I could do those coffees justice on stage. And as a barista and a competitor, I feel I have that responsibility to share this information on stage. It's a platform to do it. And if we as baristas aren't sharing this information and celebrating and sharing the value of these amazing coffees, then who will? And so that's my message that I think I'll leave you with, is just, I think we just need to continue representing these amazing producers and do our best. And as I'm sure a lot of baristas are doing already. But thank you so much for tuning in, and hopefully you enjoyed that little bit of insight. Thank you.